Got Jason Priester here to break down Clemson, of course. And the ACC released the 2025 schedule about a week ago. So this is what stands out to me, Jason. Of course, it's the Battle of the Death Valleys with LSU coming in on August 30th. And that is going to be one of the best non-conference games you would think of 2025. Of course, they played in a national championship game in 2019. Dabo Sweeney still talks about that LSU game at the Peach Bowl, Chick-fil-A Bowl, whatever they called it at that point in 2012 when Taj Boyd pulled off the 4th and 16, and that being one of the big landmark wins of Dabo Sweeney's early career at Clemson to vault them into elite status. So that's going to be a good one, of course. Then you got this situation where I'm always looking at, okay, when the leagues have become this big, who do you miss and who didn't you miss and who do you have to play? I was looking at the Big Ten just a minute ago, and the disparity between, let's say, Wisconsin, who's got the toughest schedule in the league for next season, and Michigan, it's just massive. So this is important in terms of the way these schedules are built because the leagues are so big. You got 17 teams, you play 8 games, you're missing 8 teams from the league. You're missing half the conference. So this looks like a pretty tough schedule to me because Clemson's pretty much hitting most of what were the good teams in the conference last year outside of Miami. There's SMU, Duke, Louisville, Syracuse, Georgia Tech, Florida State, should they bounce back. And it's interesting to me that Louisville's the last ACC game on a Friday night, and maybe that's going to be for a spot in the ACC championship game.
Yeah, I don't know. I wish I knew the reasoning behind putting that game on a Friday night. I mean, that might very well be 2 ranked teams. I just do not understand the way the ACC does some things sometimes, but that's a different topic for a different day. I'm kind of with you, man. This is not one of Clemson's easier schedules of late. Like you said, they hit on everybody but Miami. They got to go to Georgia Tech to open the ACC slate there in the middle of September. I think that's going to be a much improved team this year. You know, they did very well in the portal. They hit on some big-time guys in this last recruiting class. Got to go to North Carolina, face Bill Belichick. Got a college head coach with a couple of national titles and a former NFL coach with multiple Super Bowl titles, all kind of storylines. Duke won a lot of games last year. You get them at home, but get Florida State at home. And then we talked about Louisville, and you finish up with South Carolina. Obviously, the big one would be that opener against LSU, though. Obviously, Clemson proved that they could lose that opener and still make the playoff. I mean, all you got to do is go win the ACC, but I think that's a big game for Clemson from a perception standpoint. You know, they've lost several games in a row now to SEC competition. And that's a monkey they got to get off their back. If they were to drop that game, particularly at home to that LSU team, I could see the national media really starting to pile on a little bit, and it might be hard to kind of dig out of that thing from a national standpoint.
Exactly. Still control the ACC, but in terms of quieting people after losing to Georgia, South Carolina, and Texas this past year. And then you got to credit Clemson with this because every time they tack on a tough non-conference game, they're always going to play South Carolina. So they're going to be, I don't want to say one of the few teams in the country, but in the minority of teams that will go out and schedule 2 difficult Power 5 teams. So this year it's going to be LSU and South Carolina, who will probably both be ranked in the top 10 to 15 in the nation. And again, looking at the ACC, it's also about who they don't play that they would most likely just annihilate and beat up on. There's no Wake, there's no Virginia, no Stanford, no Cal, no Pitt. Again, no Miami. NC State, Virginia Tech, usually decent teams, usually good programs that will field pretty good teams. But I think it's a much tougher than average schedule. Then you throw in the big non-conference games, and it's probably the toughest schedule in the ACC. We'll obviously look at that top to bottom, but I would venture it's in the top 3.
Yeah, I think it's the toughest they've had in a while. You touched on those teams they didn't get. A lot of those they just got last year. Virginia, Stanford beat up on North Carolina State pretty good. So won't get them this year due to the unbalanced scheduling and stuff. But that's one of the downsides to these humongous conferences now. You're going to have a bunch of teams you don't play every year, and it kind of sets up for it sets up for 2 or 3 teams finishing tied, and you have to go to all these crazy tiebreakers. The ACC just barely missed that last year. It's going to happen at some point, but yeah, I tend to agree. It's one of Clemson's toughest slates in probably the last few years.
Well, Jason, we appreciate you stopping by. We will cut you loose so you can hit the ball field. And obviously, it's all going to be about, it's about Clemson. I don't know that they've got a run in them to the NCAA basketball tournament. You'd have to fill me in on that. But you got baseball coming up as well.
Oh, yeah. Clemson's a lot to make the NCAA tournament, the basketball tournament. They just beat Duke Saturday. They've only lost 4 or 5 games all year. They're 10-2 or 11-2 in the ACC. Yeah, the wheels would have to come completely off for them to miss the tournament. They'd have to just go on some terrible stretch to finish the season. But yeah, you should see them there in March somewhere.
All right, Jason, appreciate you stopping by. We'd encourage everyone to please hit the like button and subscribe. Check out Jason's work at the Clemson Insider.
Appreciate it, Mark.